All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Resonant State podcast. And I'm very pleased today to be joined once again by the Russian View team. And please check out various platforms, YouTube, etc. As this continues, and primarily the intention is to get different perspectives and different information out there. So in this regard, I do think that the conception of social safety is, there's not much that I can think of that really combines such a clear understanding with a practical way of applying to not only the individual, but to the social structure, the processes of governance, et cetera, right? And one of the things is that if you don't, there's always going to be some type of governance. If you don't govern yourself, or if you're governed by certain types of drives or unconscious processes, or et cetera, you're not going to obtain freedom, right? And this is very important. And another thing that's very important is to learn to realistically see what is the closest you can arrive at the objective truth or objective reality. And so in this regard, we would like to look at the understanding, the modeling of the mind, the human, you could say the human experiential apparatus, the unconscious and conscious mind, et cetera, within the conception of social safety. And one of the reasons I do feel this is important, as looking at some of these documents from the 1930s regarding the use of hypnotism, how hypnotism is being done in the guise of other types of activities, and the fact that I believe many people in the society itself are functioning sort of in a type of hypnotic trance that does not allow any possibility of freedom once you're locked into these types of systems, right? So hopefully in order to, prevent people from going into unnecessary back alleyways or trying to find, whether it's some kind of shamanistic retreat, shamanist ayahuasca retreat, a self-help guru, or returning to a fundamentalist vision of religion, I think the conception of social safety offers, you could say, a fourth way, third way, or an absolutely distinct path. So that's the end of my intro. So let's welcome the Russian View team. Thank you guys so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. All right, so first of all, the main question there to begin with is the question of what is the psyche? And it might seem like a kind of banal question. However, if we look at our science of today, the science that provides us with all our definitions and is the authority when it comes to these things, we don't actually have a satisfactory definition of the psyche. We have many definitions of the psyche. However, if the psyche objectively exists and each one of us has a psyche, there can't be 100 different definitions of the psyche. So at the basis of this absence of a definition in modern science, and therefore in the dominant worldview today, is the fact that information and algorithmics are not taken as objective categories of being. So anything that is essentially informational and algorithmic in its character is relegated to the realm of the humanities. And in the humanities, you can get one definition today, then you can get another definition tomorrow, and we still say, okay, but we still have a psyche, and we still don't know really what it is. In the materialistic worldview, this is nothing more than an epiphenomenon. So it's not really to be taken seriously. Only neurochemistry is looked at. And yes, in the conception of social safety, what is different is that it offers a worldview in which information is objective, as well as algorithmics. The algorithmics for the transformation of information is objective. So if you think about a computer, for example, a computer is a very good example because it objectively has algorithmics, information is input, and the information transforms according to the algorithmics. The psyche can essentially be looked at like that. So if we look at the psyche as an informational algorithmic system, then we are able to break it down very, very simply and testably by anyone who has a psyche, which is everyone, into the conscious level and the many unconscious levels. So we can agree that you have your consciousness, and anything that is outside of consciousness for you, that is your unconscious levels. This is not to reject certain views on the psyche, for example, Indian views, for example, where they talk about auras and they talk about chakras and these things. They most likely are. It's just that these are not perceivable by everyone. So what turns out is that the majority of people have to take the word of a few in this case. However, if we just look at the psyche as an informational algorithmic system where there is consciousness and the unconscious levels, then this is testable by everyone. So what turns out is that we have the conscious level. At the conscious level, what operates are the will of the subject. It always operates from the conscious level, and the attention. The attention and the will in general operate at the conscious level. Everything else, all the algorithmics of the psyche, are located in the unconscious, and there is a dialogue that is always ongoing between the conscious and the unconscious levels. Anybody? Yes.
Sorry to interrupt real quick. Would you mind just defining, for those that aren't so familiar, define algorithmics and information, if you don't mind, just a brief definition just to clarify for people.
Okay, so algorithmics you can think of, again, in computer terms, as a certain block, basically a kind of a measure. Information is perceived or goes into, just put it very simply, goes into the algorithmics, and there the information is transformed according to the parameters or according to the measure of this certain algorithmic. So for example, let's say I'm an aggressive guy, right? This means that in my unconscious, I have a certain algorithm of perception that if you look at me a certain way, this is information. Information is what is oscillated, what is emitted by any matter, to put it very generally. So if I look at you, Hans, if I look at you, I see the information that you emit to me. So when I close my eyes, I still see that image of you. It's not you in my mind. It is the information about you that comes into me, into my psyche, and is processed by the algorithms of my perception, right? So back to the example, let's say I'm an aggressive guy. An algorithm has taken shape in my unconscious where if you behave in a certain way to me, I perceive this information, process it according to the algorithmics, and a message comes up into my consciousness that I'm being aggressed against, and therefore I have to act in a certain way. So in general, the consciousness of most subjects, or in fact all subjects, rides through life on the unconscious. So the unconscious is always sending messages to the conscious level about what is going on around them, and the conscious level decides what to do on the basis of this information. This is how the psyche basically works. And if you'd like to ask any questions or add anything at this point, otherwise I'll just go on.
Continue.
Okay. So this is very basic, and I would also recommend the viewers to go and read an article that just came out recently on the RV website. It's called On the Psyche. It's exactly about the subject, but in much more detail. Not to mention the fact that it's in many of the books of the conception. Okay, so continuing. At the unconscious levels of the psyche exists our worldview. So this is, now we can transition into the subject of worldview a little bit. The worldview, so now it's good to reiterate the fact that there exists objective reality, and we, as a part of it, perceive this objective reality into our psyche, and there forms a kind of aggregate picture in our psyches, like of all these perceptions, and this is our worldview. So worldview, basically, this is a set of views, beliefs about the world, And these views and these beliefs shape our attitudes towards the world. Okay, and everybody has a worldview, and the worldview exists at the unconscious levels of the psyche, and it can be communicated to your conscious levels in a dialogue with yourself, in essence, as to how you view the world and how that view influences your actions, thoughts, interactions, relationships in the world. And in general, worldviews can be of, if you boil them down, there's many, many, many different names for worldviews. But if you boil them down, they can be of two types, two main types. One type says that the world, when I say the world, I don't mean Earth, I mean creation, just everything that is. The world is one and holistic. Everything in it is interconnected and conditioned by cause and effect relationships. There is an underlying meaning to everything. There's a function to everything. And there is a measure of development. There's a reason that we all exist, and it's cognizable. That's one worldview. And clearly, it's not the dominant worldview today. The other main type of worldview is one in which it is thought that the world is random, chaotic. If anything is connected, it's connected by accident. At the basis of this worldview are the key words randomness and chaos, basically. And if we consider a worldview and we ask ourselves, what is the function of a worldview? Then the function of a worldview is to model the course of events in life. So we see the world and we decide how to be in the world, what to do in the world, what's going to happen, and how to inscribe yourself into this modeling. If you see the world as random and chaotic, then of course your modeling of events is also going to be random and chaotic, and things are not going to turn out very prettily for you or for anyone around you. And if you see the world as holistic, on the contrary, and you model the course of events, it's much more likely that what you do will, because of the fact that it's in consonance with reality, will turn out to be good for you and for those around you. Yes, it seems very obvious, but it's necessary to say these obviousnesses. Okay, so if we look at how worldviews take shape, like how does a worldview come into our psyches? Because what happens is that it kind of takes shape by itself, generally today in our culture. It just takes shape in terms of what is perceived. So the way that a worldview takes shape is that we perceive particularities about the world, certain units of meaning, and next we start to generalize these particularities into categories. So for example, we see a dog, we see a cat, a bird, and this gets generalized into the category animal. We see a scooter, we see a car, a truck. This gets generalized into the category vehicle. Everything that's man-made, that we make in order to survive, houses, technology, cars, roads, etc., gets generalized into the category of the technosphere. And that which is nature, basically, into which we were born, this is the biosphere. And this, in this process of generalization, what happens is that we, our own I, becomes the most stable particularity. Everything comes through us. Everything begins and ends with the I in this perceiving of reality. And this is what is called in the conception the I-centric worldview. And you can imagine if we go back to the function of a worldview to model the course of events, our eyes are very, 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 very small in this huge creation, and we sometimes can't even see what is behind us. So in order to model the course of events on the basis of your own eye is not very reliable, to put it mildly. Circumstances tend to shake the eye so that the picture of the world can change from day to day or under the influence of circumstances. Okay, so moving on. In this generalization of particularities, inevitably and naturally for everyone, we come to the ultimate generalizations, the basic generalizations of everything. which form the basis of our worldview. And how it goes is because we perceive everything with our eyes, ears, through our sense organs, the first fundamental category is matter. I can see it, I can touch it, I can smell it. It's matter, it's there, it's tangible. This is the first category of reality for us. But at the same time, we understand that there is something invisible. There is like a collection of, which we can call the invisible, which moves this matter somehow. So for example, if we see the corpse of an animal, for example, and then we see a living animal, the matter is the same, but there's obviously something that moves it, which we cannot perceive in the same way that we can perceive matter. So all of this gets generalized into the category of, long ago it was into the category of spirit. And then later, with the advent of materialistic science, it got boiled down into the category of energy, basically. Right? So we have matter and energy. And then the next ultimately general category, the next most boiled downable, is everything is somewhere. Right? I'm in my room is in a country, the country is in the world, everything is located in a place. And this overall place becomes space. And then all of this somehow changes over time. So we get the 4 basic categories of being, which take shape on the basis of the eye-centric world perception. And this is matter, energy, space, and time. And here's the most important part, or one of them, is that in this worldview, spirit or energy seems to impact matter randomly. There's no rhyme or reason to it in this worldview. It can happen at any time. A good person, as we were talking about, Hans, before the podcast began, a good person can just get wiped out for what seems like no reason. It seems unfair to us. How can such a good person get killed? Basically, randomness again, as we said in the beginning of this talk about worldview, randomness. Okay, so then the question arises, if this is at the basis of the worldview and creation is objective, are these categories actually objective? And if we look at them very closely and examine them, it turns out that of these 4 categories, only one is objective, and that's matter. Because if we take them one by one, energy is just a transition state, a transitionary type of matter, right? And then if we look at space and time, which are basically incomprehensible, they cause a lot of confusion among people. I remember being young and trying to imagine nothing, and I just couldn't do it, because according to our worldview, everything tangible is located in some kind of an empty space. So I tried to imagine what is nothing. I closed my eyes and I saw black. But then I asked myself, but black is something. Basically, what we're perceiving when we perceive this blackness is the vacuum. And the vacuum is also an unexcited state of matter, right? Anyway, so the point is that space and time, these are not objective, but subjective. Because both of them only arise once we start to measure matter. So in order to get the category of space, we have to measure something material, as well as the vacuum. In order to get the category of time, we have to measure the oscillations of something material. So for example, we have to, and it's subjective, so time can be different. We can measure the Earth spinning around, that's 1 day. We can measure the Earth going around the sun, that's 1 year, and so on. So what it turns out is that these categories of being are not objective. And this means that if they are at the basis of your worldview, they will cause great problems. The next question that arises, and please tell me if I'm going on too long, if there's any questions along the way. Cool. The next question that arises is, okay, so then what is objective? Now, if we look closely, and it almost seems kind of, again, banal. But if we look at any material, it doesn't have to be a material object, but it can be a material process, material phenomenon. And Yes, so we perceive it, and as I said earlier, we spoke about information, right? Information is an objective category of being. If I look at any material thing, perceive it, close my eyes, I have that information in my mind, and that information is not the material object itself, but the information about it. The same thing if I take a photograph of it, draw it. This is the information about that material thing being transferred onto different material carriers. A very nice example is an idea. So an idea can come to you, you can share that idea with me. Now it's on two different material carriers. This idea can have existed before we were born, and it can continue to exist after we die. So clearly it exists objectively, kind of by itself, although it always had to be on a material carrier. So that's the second category. We have matter and we have information. And if we look at any, again, material object or phenomenon, it always has a certain predeterminedness of its being. So it has a certain inorderedness according to which, and only according to which, it can take shape. It's a kind of a matrix of its possible being and a matrix of its possible states, which exists also objectively, and it's not something, it's a category which is a little bit more complex to grasp, but a good way to think about it is, for example, the destiny of a person. You are born, and you are born into a certain matrix, basically, of possibilities for you. These possibilities are finite. They are very, very wide, but they are finite. They are limited by the possibilities of a presetting, a certain presetting. And you can go many different paths. You can make this choice. You can turn left. You can decide to go to that university. You can marry or not marry that girl. You can do this, 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 and this. But this matrix exists in you at every moment. It's not a subjective category, but an objective category of being. Again, I would go ahead and recommend now to go to our site, and there's an article which came out a couple of weeks ago, and it's about exactly this, the worldview of matter information measure. It's not a very long article, but I would highly recommend it. Okay, I'm going to move on a little bit, and I'll just end off here quickly. So the second thing about the I-centric worldview is that by default and automatically, it puts the intellect of a person, of man, at the pinnacle of creation. So, which means that it excludes the possibility that there are certain governances or there are certain intelligences with their own plans, let's say, which are higher than them, and by the laws of which, abiding by the laws of which, you can live in harmony, and fighting against the laws of which you can have a bad time. So it automatically rejects this possibility because the world is chaotic, and in essence, consciousness is only with man, and sentience is only with man. With the worldview of matter, information, and measure, because of the fact of the objective existence of a matrix of measure and information, you come out to the fact that if there's a matrix for you, there must be a matrix that encompasses that according to the objective laws of which your being is subordinate. And if there's one there, there must be one there, and it must continue until the highest. And this highest is what is called in the conception the highest hierarchical encompassing governance. And in the religious worldview, this would be called God. And on the basis of this worldview, it becomes possible to start to understand, first of all, that there is such a thing, objectively existing, and to change the directionality of your worldview, basically, the origin of your coordinates of perception, from yourself to that highest hierarchical encompassing governance. And this, in doing this, you are trying to build your life in a certain already objectively existing stream of the best possibilities in your particular matrix, right? Which is inevitably interconnected with everyone's matrix. And in the religious worldview, this is called the providence of God. It's the stream of the best possibilities which leads to our best possible future based on us, on our how we perceive the world, and on the basis of this perception, how we decide to act in the world, and then the results of this action in the world. So the God-centric worldview implies locating in yourself a channel which would tell you about the objective information existing already, which about what is good and what is bad, objectively good and what is objectively bad, and then trying to maintain a connection with this highest hierarchical encompassing governance, and to build your life in accordance with this objective information about what is good and what is bad, and like that. And this is called the God-centric worldview. And this is where I will stop and have a sip of water.
Great. And we'll pass it over to Andre here in a second. But so one of the things that's important, I think, to recognize with this, when you have these sort of categorical errors, no matter how many different variants you create of this, you're still not going to get a proper answer, right? And I have been, there's some quite interesting work of Martin Heidegger on Nietzsche, and which actually does connect directly with this, the will, the state, but except for there's a turn, right? Instead of going towards the highest hierarchical mode of creation, you go towards the intellect as a pinnacle, right? But the difficulty with that, you step into that frame, there's going to be a lot. If you reach that level where, you have, your mind is clear, you're able to directly experience these things. Some of these things are no matter how strong an individual human being is, human being cannot take all that energy or that whatever. Nietzsche ended up in a madhouse, right? So, but I think that this matter, energy, space, and time is so encoded into the civilizational blueprint. In a sense, though, it really is. It's a Kabbalistic system primarily. If you look at it from Kabbalah, you have the various sephirot, or these different spheres, but the base of it is Ein Sof, right? Ein Sof is primordial chaos, right? So the base of this universe is just unknowable, infinite chaos, in emptiness, infinite emptiness, right? And you find this also, the Buddhists, there's a lot of, very good things in Buddhism, but they really stress emptiness. You don't exist. Okay. Now, you could say on one level, the superficial consciousness doesn't exist, but in a certain way, when you say everything is absolutely empty, there's nothing around you. There's nothing that, literally nothing exists, right? You don't exist. This is, at least for people in the West, I think is not going to be that helpful ultimately, right? So I think the whole point is finding a mode of integration, and also, I mean, I try to find, there's always good or things that are valuable in certain traditions. Like, so you look at the Catholic faith, logos, right? So you have this logic, reason, language coming from the creator, right? It's not man-made, right? And so I think this is where a lot of people, get caught, there's a lot of deviations in both ways, that both ways, meaning one trying to do good, the one, trying to just say this is meaningless, I'm a nihilist, I'll do whatever I want, it doesn't matter. And both of these are very limited. And so I think that's, so that's just, putting that there because it can be very confusing. What is the psyche? We don't understand. Is it just the brain? Is it just neural activity? Right? This is basically the model now. This is just different neurons firing on different parts of my brain. And the whole model, right, is towards technotronic control, right? Technotronic control of the individual by replicating consciousness into a digital formatting, right? And integrating the human with the machine. And in a sense, your interactions in the world are going to be completely on this virtual landscape, unless you're one of the elites, right? In which case they get to, but this is whether or not this is going to happen. Hopefully it's not, but this is the directionality things are going into, right? Which is sort of the culmination of this, of the matter, the MEST, you could say the MEST worldview.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Dre, if you'd like to, you can go ahead and respond or continue.
Yes, basically, the psyche is the informational algorithmic system. That's absolutely correct. And most importantly, you can set it or you can configure it to something, to whatever. If it's wrong or if you feel bad the whole time, that means that something is wrong with the algorithms that process the incoming information. Basically, that's the system of your evaluations in relation to any potentially possible event or events that happened in your life and whatever. So basically, everything. You evaluate everything around, or you do not evaluate some things. So that means that you do not have any evaluations in relation to some events. So you basically don't care. That's the thing. So, and then you can evaluate some things as good things. You can evaluate some things as bad things. You can evaluate the things that you might not care at all, or they might you can evaluate them as they do not have any significance in your life, or you haven't evaluated them yet. So these are basic system of evaluations in everyone's psyche, and that's what is basically the algorithmics. So, and these are the blocks of information transformation in your psyche. So the incoming information comes, and then your evaluation system evaluates, all right, this is bad, and it goes specific path in your psyche. Or there is an evaluation that is good, and it goes another way in your psyche. Or you do not care, and then it goes passes by, basically. Let's say passes by. And if you rethink and reevaluate some things, and the evaluations, general evaluations in your psyche, this is how you can change it if you don't like it, right? But the main thing is that you have to be attuned to the objective reality as it is, as it really is. And your main thing basically is to feel good, right? So you have to have a good mood every day. If you wake up in the morning and feel bad, that means something is wrong. This is not a normal situation as it is, believed these days. All right, anything can happen. You can wake up with bad mood or good mood or whatever. This is normal. It's fine, absolutely. So, but that's not the thing. Your mood has always to be good, and you have to feel free. And that's the main thing. What the psychology should work on. But the also thing is that another big problem in the today's world is the general godlessness. Not in terms of that people do not visit churches or temples or something, but in the point that people do not understand God. People do not understand the language of life that is spoken by God to us. They cannot interpret this language for themselves in the correct way. And that's what basically makes and causes big problems in their lives. So godlessness. And the psychology of today is the, let's say, science, which is godless. That's another big problem of it today. So, and the algorithms of God, which is the providence, right, is inscribed everywhere, or almost everywhere. And the thing is that we have to correlate our worldviews and our lives with it. And the thing might come that that how to understand basically what is God's providence, what is not, and so on and so on. But the point is that we can understand that in real life, in the language of life, in the language of the events that happen to us and circumstances that happen to us and so on. This is the thing. And in order to understand this, we have to clearly see in ourselves the I center and to form God center. To form that means basically to create, not to say from scratch, but sometimes this is a missing basically category in our psyche. So imagine if now we usually measure the world from ourselves. So this is me, everything around, it's basically secondary. But imagine if we measure the world starting from God, not from ourselves. Just change the focus. So from basically from Him, everything starts from Him. Then you another man, another person, right? Not a center of the world. And then you try to evoke all the streams of feelings and sensations that might come out of this perception of the world. And then to kind of fixate in terms of like, what do I feel in this kind of situation when I consider the world like this, when I contemplate the world from this point. And then in a certain, after some time, you will form this center, like God center, from where you can see, and you most likely will feel relief, because a lot of things that you take on your shoulders will basically go. In terms of the pressure, I mean, in terms of psychological pressure. And that's the thing is missing. But for this, we have to get the understanding of God. In order to get the understanding of God, we have to be full of attention in relation to real life. We have to be, the point is that we have to cover now some Russian terms as well. Right, Sam? What do you think?
Yeah.
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 There is a Russian term which is called совесть. The thing is that the dictionary translation in English is conscience, but there is a little thing, a little nuance. The psyche of man consists of several, let's say, groups, right, of algorithms. These are the instincts and reflexes. These are the cultural algorithms, which are usually exogenetic. and the predisposition of formation of culture. Then we have our mind and intellect. Then we have intuition and all sorts of intuition. And then we have soulist, which is the voice of God in our psyche. The point is that in English, conscience can be any voice in our psyche, while soulist in Russian is only about the voice of God in our psyche. The point is that why to have this word soulist separately? The point is that when we have a certain word in our psyche, that means a certain center of meanings, a meaning gravitation point. So if, imagine if you read the definition of the word soulist, right? And then everything is described in terms of the voice of God, how to distinguish, and so on and so forth. And then you form a certain understanding. This understanding would be coded with the word soulist, right? The new one. So and then whatever new information comes and then touches this point, you will have all the massive of meanings about this evoked, and then you get the new understanding, you get the new kind of meaning point in your psyche, and that will be the voice of God, which everyone on the world has. But the point is that many languages do not really have this word separately. And that's the big problem, because if you do not have a word to code something, that means that even if this phenomenon objectively exists, it is as if not existing. That's the big problem. So that is why we have introduced this new word into English, which is soulist. And then the thing is that everyone has soulist, and everyone can listen to it. And it's extra cultural, basically. It's exactly the voice of God and the connection with God in our psyche. And all Russian culture is basically permeated with this word. That's the really important thing, and everyone has it. So, and then the thing is, if you listen to your soulist the whole time, it also tells you a lot. It really tells you a lot.
Great. Yeah. So there's a lot of important information just covered in both of these things. And I think one of the important sort of contributions, you could say, of the CSS, conceptual social safety, is that it there are many sort of spiritual paths and practices that focus on you withdraw from the world, you withdraw from life, you go into a separate space where you're spiritual, right? Or you find that and somehow it's separate also from what you're doing, not doing. You can say I don't care about any worldly accomplishment. I'm going to find enlightenment, but in a certain way, you're cutting yourself off from the circumstantial matrix in which you find yourself. And in my estimation, it's necessary to start from as close as possible, the objective concretics of your present life conditions, circumstances, how you experience things on a regular basis, and being able to see them directly, right? And so, and mood, I think, is really, really essential. I mean, people don't realize how important mood is, right? Mood is the even the resonant state. I'm talking about this attuning. Well, the mood is going to really absolutely influence what you see, why you see it, how you see it, what you're going to gravitate towards you, how you're going to interpret the actual events, right? And so and emotions will arise in the field of mood, but mood itself is so central. And yet we do have the ability through the application of will or knowledge to change that, right? And so that makes a very big difference. And then it also gives a certain measure of, you can take this responsibility and you can work to change how you're taking in these experiences, right? Instead of either being a victim or being reactive. And I think this is one of the, major issues we see, again, with the United States and Europe as well, is just sort of, collapse of people's resilience in the face of difficulty, of generating all of these various conditions they have now, like poly addiction, for example, like, medical condition, attention deficit disorder. You have people, oh, I'm bipolar, or they have depression, and all these things are medicated. All of these things, oh, I'm having this series of negative emotions or circumstances because there's something wrong with my brain chemistry. So I'm going to take some drugs, some medications that are going to alter my brain chemistry. When in fact, at least in my experience and my actual arising, is that no matter what situations or circumstances you find yourself in, by being able to redirect or trying to return, was describing sort of at least whatever level you can. Maybe it's a very small baby step, but returning to this sort of God-centric, or trying to return to this positive mood no matter what is happening, then what I've discovered is that you'll find, you could say, the matrix of possible states will work out, right? And some of these are challenges that arise in your life, especially I think if you, say if you have similar types of events, similar types of people showing up. I don't know, let's just an example would be like, say, a lady who continually meets men that seem really nice and turn out to be abusive. Well, there's something that's generating this. Or people that get into accidents all the time, right? Oh, I don't know why. So this lack of sort of responsibility, or looking in the wrong way, right? I mean, so, or else the other thing is basically looking for these types of ecstatic emotional experiences, or ecstatic sensory overload, whatever it may be, like, extreme pleasure, extreme excitement, extreme, whatever it may be, looking for these things as this is the peak. In fact, I'll just leave it, but Maslow's hierarchy, you probably don't have that in Russia, probably lucky for you. Abraham Maslow, okay, is these things have become integrated into just, it's like, Newton, the law of thermodynamics or whatever. It's like, oh, did we have the hierarchy of needs? Well, really? if you follow the hierarchy of needs in terms of you look at the actual man that wrote these books and his system, you start out with, survival, you have to have food, you have to have this, you have to have that. Well, is it true that you can't, have loftier thinking or feeling if you don't have food? No, you certainly can. Right? I mean, you can, so but then the peak of this, they call self-actualization. What does he express self-actualization as? The ultimate measure of self-actualization is the orgasm. So the sexual experience is the peak, the pinnacle of human experience, right? Through all of these, the hierarchy of human needs. Well, so this isn't this, and I guess I'm saying with this is, it may not be as exciting or flashy to try to get this type of stability in your perceptions, to try to unwind this pattern conditioning that we're all afflicted with. I'll leave it there. I could talk about I'll just say this real quick about the reticular activating system, right? So this is part of the filtration mechanism of consciousness, okay? So this is the part of the brainstem and the part of, the human nervous system, basically, that acts as a filter of what you see, what you experience. In a sense, it creates the framework of your consciousness, right? It creates the field of your conscious attention. It creates what you're able to perceive. If it's, and this is a great, biological survival mechanism, the reticular activating system, but it can be changed quite easily. It can also be very much locked into place, right? But it is a framing. So things are outside of that. We do through the will, through conscious intention, we can shift that. But if something is outside of that, you're just not going to see it. It's not even going to come. That information is not going to enter into your conscious field. You're not even going to know that that exists, right? And then if you're by being locked into what we call the eye-centric position, this ossifies this field of potential, consciousness. And then from there you can you could decorate your prison with lights, new wallpaper. You can have some peak ecstatic experiences, but you're still going to be in that same prison cell in a certain way, right? So I'll leave it there. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, you were talking about circumstances, about how people perceive circumstances and think of themselves as victims. And a good example of changing the I center to the God center is that, first of all, operating on the axiom that God, one of the most important ways that God speaks to us is through the language of life circumstances. So if a woman is running into the same man again and again, the I-centric reaction would be, why does this happen to me all the time? How come this always happens to me? Where the God-centric one would be that life is full of meaning, and there must be a meaning in this by which I can, first of all, take responsibility for the fact that this is happening, looking into my own psyche and freeing myself of the algorithms which keep on leading me here, and thereby coming closer to God, basically. So this is one example where circumstances become the language of God as opposed to that which beats us about with no rhyme or reason. The second thing that you were talking about with Maslow's pyramid and these things, generally this is the perception that man cannot change. And underlying this perception is the view of man as an animal, basically. So now, what Andre said before about Sovist, and about the fact that if you don't have a word for a certain objectively existing phenomenon, that it's like it doesn't exist for you. You need these parameters in which there is this information specifically in order to have it identified in your psyche. This is about Sovist. This is the connection with God in the psyche of every person. On the back of this definition, we can now define what a human is. And again, as strange as it may seem, there is no definition of a human today which would have us being different from animals. If there are, they are not unified. So there are many of them, basically, and they are all subjective, and they're all kind of in the realm of hazy, flaky philosophy, basically. So according to the conception of social safety, the definition of a human is a will which subordinates its creative potential to the dictates of Sovist. So you use your will in order to, first of all, to locate this voice in your psyche and separate it from all the other voices in your psyche. You then subordinate your creative potential. This is basically everything that you do in life, because you're always kind of creating. As long as you're being, no, you're not always creating, but if you are creating, you'll be doing it on the basis of what you glean from this dialogue. And then the question is, okay, what if I'm wrong? And to find out if you're wrong, life is your teacher. So the criterion of truth for anyone, whatever level of education, whatever nationality, the criterion of truth is practice. You have a dialogue, you find this voice, you subordinate by your will your creative potential to this voice, you act in life, and then you receive feedback from life and go back to the drawing board again. And this is what a human is. And this can be, again, checked by anybody. You don't have to be a guru or like a levitator or something like that in order to check that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's quite important because in a certain way, it's put into your hands, right? So now you have the potential, and you can say, well, how's my life? Is it perfect? On the other hand, you could say, well, many people live in the thing, if I have this amount of money, if I have this particular position, if I have this particular power, I'm able to exert this kind of power configuration with this level of status and, these types of relationships, I'll be happy, right? But all of these things are externally contingent, right? And so we can't, there's always good things in various faiths as long as you parse them. So Buddhism, a big thing is impermanence, right? There is no permanence in anything that you're going to look for in this externalized world, right? That you cannot find permanence in a particular relationship, in a particular job, and you don't know what's going to come here or there. But at the same time, we have, I guess, sophists, by just making a shift, right? You're shifting a perspective away. And I think within that, then suddenly many things that are issues, just are gone because they're simply based on this wrong connection. And Tarkovsky, one of the greatest, film directors of all time, always talked about conscience, which Soves. So he used that word Soves. So now I have a better understanding of his, of what he was meaning by that, right? But that was very important to him. Of course, during the Soviet times, you couldn't necessarily talk about religion, right? But this, I just want to state that a lot of people believe, and it's a very common belief in the West, that in a sense, people are evil animals that must be conditioned through society to become good, or other people are able to recognize this and they obtain a state of mastery, which you describe in the CSS as demonic type of personality, right? But, and I'm not trying not to talk too long, but I went to this, grocery store yesterday. I talked about it last night, but it was just interesting for me to start really observing and seeing that, wait, okay, I'm in this environment and it's designed to overload the sensory system, the nervous system, right? It's going to create sensory overload. You probably don't have that. I've been to Thailand many times. I don't think you're going to find that there, but this stuff is all studied, right? All these different triggers, colors, sounds, sensory overload, confusion. Okay, most people are not even this is going to be completely unconscious, right? They're going to just ignore it. They're there. I'm there to shop. But the thing I noticed that it was disconcerting a bit is I realized that almost everybody was completely just in this tiny bubble of themselves, right? They literally were not, besides their direct objectives, they're moving here and there, they were not in the actual space. You know what I mean? They were in this, you call it eye-centric bubble. And then when you're in that type of paradigm, you can be very easily governed externally, right? Very easily governed externally. And so I think that, part of this principle of moving to they call the singularity, right? The uploading of consciousness into the computer is to eliminate, if possible, the capacity to access Sophist, right? To eliminate, to try to take this vector out of play, so to speak, because it's easy to think that this particular whatever apparatus, the whole geopolitical situation, the local this and that, they have absolute control and power. Well, I'd say they don't, right? Absolutely not. And so I think okay, I'll leave it there. But I think that it's really central importance in that you can, and you work within the concretics of your actual life circumstances. You don't have to go into a cave and sit there and meditate, or join a group, or join a religious, some kind of a cult, or, do some kind of, training regime, whatever. Because there's so many of these things. Oh, I'm going to find it through this. I'm going to do this. I'll find this. Oh, I'll find it in this relationship. You're constantly seeking for something externally that it's, you're never going to find it, because it's not there outside yourself in the framing of the I-centric model.
Yeah. One thing should be added is that there is an objective phenomenon of the psychic development stages. I mean, starting from the birth up to a certain point. And the thing is that it starts with the animal state. So a baby is born and is totally dependent on his or her mother. And then what this baby does is just sleeps, eats, and so on. So basically like animalistic. This is the animal stage, let's say. Then the baby starts to talk at the age of about 3 years, let's say on average, earlier or about that age. So, and then the baby starts to absorb all the culture together with the language. And then at this age, he or she copies everything around, just thoughtlessly. And then another and has the authorities usually in the face of parents and other maybe adults around him. And then this baby might recognize some authorities while disrespecting other authorities. And then after that, at the age of about 7 or 8 or 9, about that, the intellect comes into the game, and then he starts to rethink the surrounding reality, and then the will might come as well. And then he starts to show his character, basically, my way or the highway, and so on. And at this point, he basically disappoints in his authorities. So his parents, they start to not understand anything all of a sudden. And only after that, after this crisis, he or she might enter the high spiritual age. There is two basically ages, the spiritual one and the passport one. Passport one can go, it counts every year, but the spiritual one, it goes through these stages. And the highest one is at the age of 14, it's supposed to come. So, and then at the age of 14, basically the person understands that the will of God cannot overwield. So that means that you are not stronger than the circumstances around you. And then the person tries to come into the harmony with the highest all-encompassing governance. That's basically how it's supposed to be. And usually the development of people stops at some of these stages. While physically it might go on, but basically it stops at some of these stages. So if it stops at the animal stage, then this is the animal type of psychic structure. If at the second one, whereas the authorities, he starts to copy and so on, this is the thoughtless type. This is the zombie type of psychic structure. Then the other one, where is the my way or the highway? This is the demonic one. And the last one is the human one, where the sophist basically rules him. And the thing is that the types of psyche might change even every hour or be stable the whole life. It depends on the person. But that's not another hierarchy. That's objective phenomenon which everyone goes through. There's nothing new. And what the people in India did, they just saw this objective phenomenon, but they turned this into the hierarchy, basically. And then now we see these castes. They are basically as a archetypical copy of this objective phenomenon. While this objective phenomenon can be changed, and if you find yourself at the age of 30 to be in the zombie type of psyche structure, you can change. While the castes in India, they usually, are insurmountable, so you cannot, as an exception, it could be, but basically you cannot change your caste. If you're born in the caste of Kshatriyas, you'll be there the whole time. If you're born in some other caste, you'll basically be there the whole time, the whole life. So, and then this might happen as well, where when there is an objective phenomenon and someone copies it in the wrong way and generates mistakes and errors. So, and then another kind of disclaimer, right? That's not a hierarchical system. The types of psychic structure is an objective psychological phenomenon, which everyone can study and check around, check in oneself's psyche, and check in the people around, and basically be very disappointed finding that people around, friends, family, and so on, are not those guys who are in the human type of psychic structure. But that's not hopeless. It can be changed. And basically, what can be said about that is that you remember, right? I've said already about the system of evaluations. So, algorithms in the psyche of man is basically this system of evaluations. And they are not only right or wrong in terms of correspond to the objective reality in the correct way or not. So they might be, they are also hierarchically ordered, which means you might have the correct evaluations about the world around and about the objective reality, but at the same time, they might be wrongly hierarchically organized, which will also cause big problems. So the point is that the types of psychic structure are also the groups of these kind of algorithms. And then if the algorithms of, for example, animal type of psychic structure are hierarchically highest in your psyche, then that makes you to be a carrier of the animal type of psychic structure. If of the demonic ones, then the demonic ones, and so on and so forth. So the thing is that we have to get to the point of human type of psychic structure. And it's possible for everyone. And the human type of psychic structure means not having any fears. While, as you said today, about the people trying to withdraw from the world, means that they are driven by fears. Because there are the pressure of the environment, right, pressing you the whole time. And instead of dealing with it, they're just trying to escape it. Oh, we will just run away into the forest and meditate the whole time, instead of having them solved. I mean, instead of solving all these things, all these pressures and does to develop. No, they just run away into the forest. Yeah, sometimes they really get some nice and really high results in terms of this levitating or whatever, but that does not change the main thing. The type of psychic structure is not human. Even if you can do a lot of things or able to do a lot of things. So that's what is the types of psychic structure in the CSS. This is a central point, which is not basically covered in the modern psychology, or any other psychology usually is not covered. So this is one thing, and the other thing is godlessness of psychology. This is another thing. So those two things, no human standard. So what is human? There is no definition of what is human in psychology as well as in the science in generally, and total godlessness. These two things make psychology not just say useless, but not being able to solve all the problems of humanity. That's for sure.
Well, I'll let you. Sorry, I'll let you come in here, but I mean, for example, well, I do have a question, which I'll mention that. So the knowledge of these particular stages, right? So you have Lacan, who was a psychologist, a disciple of Freud, but a lot more, you could say, advanced. So he talks about the inner stage, right? Which should be completed around the age of maybe 5, 6, maybe 7, maybe 8 at the latest. But this is a case where there is an inner psychic reflection, say, of the parent, like your mother, your father, is as an idealized state, and you have an inner mirror where you see yourself as your father or something like that, right? This is supposed to be absorbed into the psyche. You're supposed to go through this stage. The whole celebrity culture, all the pop music, all various types of manipulative things or things that people are caught up in is based on continually reactivating this inner mirror, right? So you hear a pop song, you imagine you're the subject of that song, right? This is known about since the 1930s. As long as people are in that stage, you haven't completed that, the stage of the development. You're easily, for people that have a greater knowledge of these phases, can, activate or access them, right? Even though you're a full grown adult, even with a career, part of your psyche is still, hasn't completed. But what would you say about trauma, though? Because there is, there's many examples, but there's a lot of people now are discussing and saying, I have all these traumas, so many traumas, these traumatic patterns, I can't get beyond them. And there is, of course, birth trauma in the United States, forced circumcision for men, things like that. So there are certain existential, you could say objective circumstances that happen, or else in types of upbringing where, if there's a type of abuse or whatever. How would you say, when you have these kinds of issues, how would this apply to that? Or, yeah.
Okay, so I would say that first of all, the cure for all traumas will be exactly this relationship with God that you establish by yourself in your psyche. All of this is not to deny the existence of traumas. Yes, in this culture, people are born and the circumstances are such that they are wounded. But again, these wounds and these traumas what is good about them is that they exist objectively and they can be decoded by us. Their meanings can be decoded by us. We can ask ourselves a lot of questions as to what is it that I have been destined to deal with in this life? If my life is meaningful, and I do have a certain destiny, which I do, and I have the opportunity in the face of my traumas to look at, number one, how they influence my behavior in life, like how I treat people because of them. I can ask myself whether they make me afraid to interact with people. I can ask myself what they do to me. And then I can start to ask myself, okay, so if there's God, if God is objective, if there's an objectively meaningful best destiny preset for me, which there must be according to my perception of the world, then what is the message here? What is the overall message here for me? And it must mean that in humanity is all one. We're all together. We're all one organism over time, basically. And if we look at our culture, we can understand that it's a very sick culture. It's everybody is wounded. Mental health problems are really bad today, especially today. People are, as we spoke about earlier, about the worldview where everything is random. A consequence of this is the idea that we're all alone. So in general, we are not supported by this creation because this creation is trying to kill us, basically, or it's just indifferent because there is no sentience, there's no intelligence, and ultimately, there is no love. But just by asking this, just by the fact that we actually notice an absence of love due to the objective reality that information is objective, there must be a real love which we are looking for, which we are all looking for. And this real love should come from God, and it should be permeated throughout creation. And it should mean that creation is meaningful and that love can be acquired. So like the objective of every soul coming here is to learn how to love. And if we are born into certain circumstances of suffering, of war, chaos created by us, not objective chaos, mental wounds and all these things, then this must mean that we are tasked with solving these problems in our fields. It doesn't mean we have to go and become president tomorrow. We have our objective circumstances around us, and they are ours alone. And because of the fact that they are ours, we are able to read them. And from reading this, we can decide what to do for ourselves and for the rest of the people. And it was from reading the circumstances of the world, which lead to all these problems and to all these wounds that people have and traumas, that the conception of social safety came. Because otherwise there would be nothing else for them to do. And it's the same for us all. Like we have our certain problems which hurt us. We want to be free of this hurt. Ultimately, this hurt is based in the false idea that there is no God and there is no point. And what this information that what the conception offers is an opportunity for you yourself to go and look in your psyche and understand that it's all up to you, basically. It starts with you and your relationship to creation and your relationship to God. So I haven't given any techniques there because it's very specific to the certain circumstances. There are, if a person starts to ask questions about what's wrong with him and these things, then he should just be attentive to life, and he will find the right people, the right books, the right channel. If he's attentive, the whole point is to be attentive to life and in communication with her. And then, so I can't now recommend one book that's going to cure every trauma, So the person will find that book himself on the basis of his personal, innermost, sacred relationship with the Most High, with the highest hierarchical encompassing governance, through his objectively existing, for everyone it objectively exists, Sovest, which needs, at this stage of our evolution, to be first located in everyone's psyche, because unfortunately our culture does not encourage finding this, and the culture objectively does everything to drown this voice. As you were saying earlier, Hans, about how the culture creates fear, basically, and conditions us to buy and be consumers because it looks at us like animals and under the control of instincts, and these instincts need to be reined in, basically. However, everybody has the power to go and find their own channel of communication with the Most High, and that's the cure for everything.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I would
Andre?
I would also say that, of course, there are pathological cases where people have to go to psychologists or whatever, psychiatrists and all this stuff. But there are also cases where people But if a person realizes that he or she has traumas, right, and has enough will and decisiveness to heal those traumas, then this person will definitely find a way, especially if asking God for help, not in church, not in temple, but just at any point, anywhere, but just sincerely. Then everything is gonna be fine, and this person will be somehow, all of a sudden, by accident, randomly, surrounded with the necessary books, people, movies, whatever else, where he or she will get all necessary tools in order to do that. And the support will be always for people who try to find the objective content of their psyches, and for people who try to really sincerely, absolutely selflessly, to harmonize themselves with the providence, with God, and to attune their psyche with the objective laws of being. Then, even though not understanding at all what it is, but just to have this decision, this will be enough. Just decide first, absolutely firmly, 100%, and then observe the world. You will see the signs. This is no questions. It's just sometimes you do not have to understand what the first step should be. You don't have to understand those things. You just have to decide this is the first thing, and it makes everything. It's just a magic. Your decision, your absolutely firm decision makes everything, basically.
Andre, just explain, can you go into that a little bit more? So the decision, just to sort of clarify for listeners.
Right, okay, so imagine a person realizes that she or he has traumas, and this person wants to heal them. But instead of having kind of excuses the whole time, oh, it's just this life, this kind of style, I had bad childhood, whatever, this person just takes on the responsibility on his own or her own shoulders and decides, that's it. I'm not going to tolerate all these traumas any longer. That's my psyche. And the only one person who suffers from this the most is me. Why should I suffer anymore? I don't want to suffer anymore. That's it. I would like to put an end to this situation. But I do not have any idea how to do that. And for this person, the only thing is enough at that point is just to decide, no, that's it. I will definitely change. I don't know how. I'm ready to everything that's ahead of me, but I want to be happy and to feel lightful. But I will do that. I don't know how. No idea. I have no books. I have no clues. I have no hints. I have no even imagination how it could be. Just a decision, firm.
And then basically doors start to open. Doors that you spoke earlier about this attention, this bubble of consciousness that you have, where you just notice certain things. Once you've made this decision, I'm going to deal with this, then doors, paths, basically you're attuning yourself to the matrix where it's possible that you end up being healed. And things start to happen which lead to your one day looking back and going, I don't know how I can't believe how that happened. I never could have prescribed that at that moment. I never could have laid that path for myself at the moment because I had no idea. The only thing that I knew about, was my suffering. But making the decision, it tunes you to finding answers for answers coming to you. The only thing is that after you ask God for the help is that you have to then be attentive to these openings and watch, observe as life answers you, and then feel, is this, maybe this is something, this is connected with what I was thinking about. This is connected with my prayer. It can even be, it can be anything. It can be that something comes up after you've, it can be that some kind of conflict comes up. You might be expecting something nice, but some kind of a conflict comes up after you have made this decision. And this conflict can then be also a key for you to unlock something that you hadn't thought about before in connection with your original problem, which led to your suffering. So stepping into...
The decisiveness. So you have to be ready for anything, and you have to be like, all right, so whatever happens, I'm ready for it, because that's my responsibility. That's it. Yes, some problems might come. What to do? I'm ready, because I know where I'm heading. If you have some kind of doubts, oh, but please, maybe some nice way. No. It doesn't work this way. You have to be totally decisive.
Yeah, well, I think that it's a great way to sort of close out this discussion, because one of the operating principles, you could say, of a lot of the contemporary either medical system, psychological system, is to almost make a fetish of your problem and continuously this, that, and then you becomes your identity. Well, I can't do this because I'm traumatized, or I'm going to go talk about my traumas more and more and more, you know? And so essentially, you know, this is like sort of my own, I guess, a certain way I was drawn to the CSS, because it sort of reflected my own process as I started to approach things, right? So, I mean, my principle one is that never create unnecessary suffering. You don't need to suffer about your suffering. Like, you see what is there, and then the decision to move away from that, the decision to move to this other thing, and you just stay resolutely, and even things that you in the past you think there's no way I can survive this, it's unbearable, you'll find the way through it, right? Things will clarify. And the other thing is, it really, I mean, you know, everyone puts so much trust in science, psychology, etc. The highest rate of suicide is psychiatrists of any profession in the United States. Psychiatrist, next is dentist. Okay, dentist, I understand.
Understandable.
but it's like nobody likes a dentist, you know. But psychiatrists, these are the people that are supposed to be helping people, right? And they're committing suicide. That means they're not happy. That means either, okay, whatever that means. But you know, this. Well, I think we just leave it there. But this will, because really, you know, you come down to it, the conscious, what you're actually capable of perceiving at any given instant is actually quite small, right? It's not, it can be, now you can start to expand out, right? You can really find a much broader field of consciousness when you move from this sort of eye-centric perspective. But I think that's something, again, you know, you have to find that yourself. You don't need to have someone describe these characteristics, right? You'll enter it yourself. You'll see it. It's better not to create imaginary correlates of states that are not yet accessible, right? You know what I mean? But I think this is really essential. And I think that, you know, at least I'll just leave it at this with the, you know, you have the as particle wave formation. I think it's possible to shift back. You may have gone really off your timeline, right? Off your life purpose, whatever. As long as you haven't gone to the absolute terminal point, you can get back to that timeline. You'll find, whoa, It's all here, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the past itself can become redeemed. So this is the thing, then you remain fearless in what is coming, right? You don't need to be afraid. And that, some of these things, if you just try to, you're not necessarily going to be able to come to a conscious understanding in your mind, depending on where you're at, right? Sometimes it's better not to, right? I mean, I think you guys may disagree, but I think like even sometimes, that you have a trauma, well, see how it's operating. What is it? What system is it affecting? How can you remove it? Maybe you don't need to know every single detail, right? Maybe you do, but maybe you don't. Maybe you go to the space of clearing. You go to, and then, trying, it's, in a sense, you're much smaller because you're just a single point, but yet, wait, you're a single point within this whole vast system, which you can find a connection to if just by having that intention, I want to find that. So, and I'll leave it, you guys. You guys can go ahead and share any information you'd like and any closing thoughts. So,
I would like to add that it's not only about getting or catching some emotions, which will give you some relief. It's more about the fact that you have to understand sort of things and grow in the measure of understanding things. So you have to rethink and to reevaluate the events that cause pressure onto your psyche. So because if you get an emotion, that means that this pressure might come again. So you have to change the algorithms of processing this pressure. So, for example, and most importantly, what is the place in providence of this event in my life? So why did this happen? It has a certain potential, it has certain meaning, and I can use it, I can understand, become better, and so on. And I certainly know less than God. And that means that I have to kind of accept some things that this happened, but not from the point, oh, I suffer from that. No, but from the point that's perfect. So this happened, that means that the axiom goes, God never makes any mistakes. And that means that if this happened, that means that there is a certain place for this in the objective metrics in my life as well, my destiny. And that means that it has a certain meaning. If I don't understand this meaning now, that does not mean that I have to suffer from that. So I have to get to the point. If I cannot do that exactly right now, okay, leave it, relax. This understanding might come tomorrow. But you have to ask yourself the whole time, okay, what does that mean? How to rethink? Okay, let's try to think from another point of view. So you have to change the algorithmics, evaluations. That's a very important thing. And then, another one is that if God does not make any mistakes, that should give you a certain mood, right? Because that means everything goes perfectly. In terms of the balance of today's evaluation systems of all the participants. Which means if we want to have a better life, we need to change our algorithms of information processing in our psyches. And then the better possible situation will be better one. That's a very important thing. So everything, and that means that the responsibility, in relation to our life, is all with us. And if you have any temptation to shift this responsibility to someone else, you make God from that one someone else. because that means that the responsibility in relation to your life or something else, in relation to you personally, is with someone else. So that's why victimhood, all these victims and so on, it's nothing good at all.
That's absolutely right, and that's very important because you get the stuff. Oh, my parents did this to me. I have this thing. My mother. You have people in their 60s, 70s still talking about what their parents did to them. Which certainly something has happened. Heal that, right? And by making, in a sense, you make either your therapist, you make the person that's injured you, that you're blaming for your life circumstances, into God for you, right? So that's a great way of looking at it, and just don't do it, right? It's not necessary. Why make life more difficult, right? It's better to face as much as you can with clarity. And is it going to change? What's the this? I think it's important if I could just try to clarify. Is it idea of like, okay, I need to get revenge, or this person hurt me, and I'm holding this wound and this suffering because these people were bad to me. People sabotage. I mean, I could look. I used to be a professor. I did get sabotaged. I got but look at the institutional framing, right? I was in a matrix of a particular thing. Eventually, it would not have worked out well at the current academic world in the United States. I may go back and do that. But as soon as I realized that, well, if the more if I hold on to what affected my circumstances and keep holding on to this situation or these people, the more energy and more power they have. And in effect, I'm holding this system in place myself, right? Drop it, right? And it's important because don't identify as soon as you identify, I'm a victim. I'm a victim of this person. I'm a victim of, racism, anti-white racism, anti-German racism. No, I mean, well, I probably am, but I choose not to see it that way, right? These are circumstances. As soon as you, the hierarchy of victimhood, right? It's you probably don't have that where you guys are, but United States, there's, maybe it's a little bit less now under Trump, but so there's like the more victimized you are, if you're a certain, you're transgender, whatever, this race, this, that, you're at the hierarchy of the most victimized person, then you have the most power. And you can arbitrarily create reality by how you just subjectively feel it is, right? That's been sort of the system in certain institutional levels here for about past 8-10 years. This is right. Even if you have power or whatever, you're still lost, right? The people are still lost. And so anyways, but it's important. I think when you accept this, you're no longer a victim. You're not a victim anymore. Isn't that great? Right? You just set it down, and you don't need to feel important because of your suffering, right? People, it's like, oh God, I'm so much pain, so much. Okay. Do you want to be healed from the pain, or you want to just live in it and complain about it? Yeah. Okay. Anyways.
Yeah. The first commandment is don't fear. And this is a very important one. And not just don't fear just because don't fear, because it's difficult not to fear for people, just by saying that, oh, don't fear, yes, they won't stop. But imagine not to fear. There is no point to fear if you are with God, because God is always with you, but you might not be with God. And then you yourself make your life worse. So imagine if you basically are trying to come back to God, why to fear? If he talks to us in the language of our life circumstances, he is not a tyrant, and he will never do those things that people can do themselves. He is not a policeman. He will not punish those guys who terrorize you because you are a victim, right? This is a perverted view on the world. and on the on God as well. So don't fear. That's the main thing. It is not easy. I don't say it's like that easy, but the point is this is the first commandment, and it's not without a reason.
I would just add, and to end off, I suppose, there's been a lot of talk about God today, and this is because it's the most important theme today. There might arise in the viewers certain objections or certain doubts, and we would recommend very highly a course that we have that is on the site, the RV site, for free to download. It is a 6-volume course called Comparative Theology, and it is about theology. It's about not only about man's relationship with God. This is the first most important thing, but also about how people are governed through religion, through a middleman coming in between man and God. And this book is written by people from the position of people who already believe God, not believe that there is a God, but have or strive to maintain this relationship that we've spoken about today. And they already start from this position. So they're not starting from the position, is there God? Let us be proven to by some sacred scriptures that there is God, or from the position of some one religion being the only one. No, it's written from the position of people who strive to maintain this exact relationship that we're talking today. And this makes it incredibly unique in our world, and something that those seeking, it might be just the thing at this point for them to start to open up to new and more consonant ideas of what God is, and separate God from the Bible God, which is the main guy that pops up in the heads of those who hear this word. So we would highly recommend this course to your listeners if they have the wish to start to go down this path, this amazing path.
This cycle was written basically by those people who believe not in God, but to God extra confessionally. So basically, that is precious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, and of course we're using a particular word, and it has, you'll get lots of different definitions and experiential things, but I think in a certain way it is it's a clear conceptual field that you can start to populate with your own direct experience, with the sense that it doesn't have to be mediated, right? You don't need this particular priest or rabbi or counselor or imam to say this is what it is, right? Or so that, but then you have more responsibility. So that's the other side, right? You can't just say, well, this person is going to explain it, but and in a certain way, I think it is really incumbent, though, in terms of the potential matrix of possible states of the earth and humanity, right? I mean, we are definitely reaching more and more of sort of tipping points, right? Into, I don't think we want another deluge, right? We don't want to have another big, no. You know what I mean? So I think that within this framing, I think you can start to have much greater impacts than it seems possible just for one individual, right? I mean, it's so, and I think, not to be hopeless, not to give up, but yeah. And so, anyways, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. It's a real pleasure. You guys are doing such amazing work to really, because without these translations and without this availability, we'd never know this existed, right? It would just absolutely not even be available. And I don't, unless you guys can tell me, I can't think of anything exactly like this with this level of comprehensibility that is still, in a sense, allows for the open-ended connection of the individual to the system, right? It's not that you have to, okay, you believe this, here's your 5 doctrines. Okay, no fear, but you don't need to believe that. You got to live it. That's different, right? But you know what I mean? If I'm okay, this, you know, but to believe God and just, I mean, it's just a choice, right? But I mean, why not? I mean, you know, if you have options and you have the small, you know, you have the choices you make, you know, there's so many variables, this, that. I mean, you can't, there's almost too many things to know that are possible. And that's why the subconscious is so important in the unconscious in sort of creating your life, right? Most of the things are done completely unconsciously. Most things, 90%. But to bring this, your will to the forefront. And so anyways, I'll put the links for this comparative theology. And again, thank you guys for
Just
your
one more thing. Sorry, Hans.
Oh, please.
Just
No,
one,
go ahead.
One
Yep.
more thing. Just one more thing. If you think about God as talking to you in a language, just remember that, think about learning any language. You don't learn it overnight. You have to study, you have to think, you have to use your faculties, in your psyche, you have to do a lot of stuff. So imagine learning from scratch for a lot of people, the language in which God speaks to you. And just don't be discouraged if it doesn't come overnight. And that's it. That's the last thing I wanted to say.
Great. So we'll have both the website and your guys' YouTube channel. So I highly recommend everybody to download these books, you know, read them and connect. And you know, we'll see, you know, what maybe there'll be a way of this kind of percolating to a different culture in a different world. And maybe it'll take there may be some things that are more specifically, say, Slavic. Okay, I shouldn't say that, but you know, things that maybe, you know, there may be some modifications, but I think this potentially offers a way forward without, you know, going into one of these camps, right? Because we're divided. We have Republicans, Democrats, you have atheists, you have Satanists, you have believers, you have this, that, and even, you know, I mean, there's a lot of Satanism, but there's a lot of occult stuff going on now. People are going towards that as well, right? So you have these polar opposites. Find the direct path. So that's I hope, and you know, again, thank you guys for your work, and I certainly hope that people will get at least the impetus to look into this. And you know, in a certain way, life is an experiment. Try to at least move towards more objective levels of perception, and you know, find that you don't have to carry all the weight of the world, but then you do have things that I think you have to find what your purpose and how you could best live in the world. So without that, you're never going to be happy. So I hope everybody's happy. And again, thank you guys for staying up so late. I know it's the guy out there in Thailand. It's quite late at night, but absolutely appreciate it. And
thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us and for